The so-called prison decree approved this week by the Italian parliament has triggered a heated political debate. An overall improvement of detention conditions, an increase in the number of prison staff and a much simplified procedure to access early release are some of the provisions of the new measure. Backers of the decree say it's the first time in years that the government has addressed the issue.
Si tratta di un problema grave, quello del sovraffollamento e dei suicidi in carcere, che viene affrontato per la prima volta dopo circa 15 anni di immobilismo e di assoluto silenzio da parte dei governi delle sinistre, e due esigenze, quella del garantismo e quello della sicurezza, che si coniugano dal nostro punto di vista assolutamente bene con questo decreto.
But according to the NGO Antigone, which carries out independent on-site monitoring activity, with an overcrowding rate currently standing at 130% and 65 suicides so far this year, this latest measure won't be enough to solve the problem.
Sarebbe stato negligente da parte di qualsiasi governo non intervenire. Il problema che si è scelto per calcolo politico un intervento non strutturale e un intervento che sostanzialmente non cambierà la situazione e anzi in alcuni punti largamente deludente rispetto anche a quelle che potevano essere alcune aspettative. Questo è come se volessimo fare un paragone, è come se ci sono dei problemi strutturali ad una casa, la casa sta crollando, in questo caso la casa è il sistema penitenziario e invece di andare a lavorare sulle fondamenta tu ti occupi di cambiare le tapparelle o modificare i davanzali.
According to the Council of Europe's annual statistics on prison populations for 2023, Italy is among a few countries that suffer from severe overcrowding levels.
Da 30 anni a questa parte, a partire dagli Stati Uniti e poi in Europa, in generale nel mondo occidentale, si è deciso che il diritto penale e i sistemi penitenziari dovessero prendersi carico e risolvere problemi che in realtà non hanno nulla a che fare col penale e col penitenziario, ma che sono prima di tutto problemi sociali. Il tema delle tossicodipendenze, il tema del disagio giovanile, il tema della salute mentale, il tema della povertà.
It will take a while before some of the provisions become effective. Meanwhile, in the summer months, imprisonment conditions worsen due to increased temperatures. Giorgio Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
Has the German government learned its lesson from Nord Stream 2? Apparently, yes. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz paid a surprise visit to Belgrade a few weeks ago to sign a major lithium mining deal with Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić in a bid to reduce the EU's dependency on China. Germany has ambitions to build 15 million electric vehicles by 2030 to keep its automobile industry afloat, which the German economy is largely dependent upon. But widespread protests are planned across Serbia this weekend, with more than half of the Serbian population rejecting plans to mine in the Jadar Valley. These plans are not only controversial due to the environmental cost of mining, but also because of the politics. EU countries such as Austria, Portugal and the Czech Republic have large quantities of lithium in them, so it seems that the EU just wants to keep the dirty work outside of its own backyard. Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.
What started these right-wing protests? Misinformation surrounding the murder of 3 young girls.
I won't shy away from calling it what it is. Far-right thuggery.
Last night in towns and cities across the UK, though, thousands of anti-fascist protesters outnumbered right-wing groups. But the anti-immigrant sentiment has arguably been bubbling under the surface for many years. It led the Conservative government to propose plans to fly immigrants to migrant camps in Rwanda and to put them in barges like this one off the coast. The Labour government has now scrapped these policies, calling them gimmicks and a waste of taxpayer money. For now at least, those inside Number 10 will be extremely relieved that anti-fascist protests have helped quell recent racist unrest. But the new government now has to pick up the pieces after years of conservative anti-immigration rhetoric and failed policies, which ultimately heightened tensions. all eyes will now be on the Prime Minister and how he chooses to navigate this political tightrope.
There is a difference between responsible politicians and irresponsible politicians.
Dr. Nigel Fletcher is a former advisor to Prime Minister David Cameron and believes Labour must now do what the Conservatives couldn't and take meaningful action around migration.
Labour not only have to solve it, but also solve it in a way that is markedly and demonstrably different in tone and substance to how the Conservative government were seeking to respond to it. Because if they continue with some of the rhetoric and some of the hardline policies that the previous government had, they will alienate parts of their own party.
The UK government has recently announced plans for a new border security command to tackle human smuggling gangs. This reflects the broader European struggle with migration. As the political landscape evolves, the challenge is to implement effective, humane policies that appease both sides of the political spectrum. Luke Hanrahan, Euronews, London.
Where there are tourists, there are pickpockets. This is also the case in Barcelona, where many visitors to the city end up leaving without a phone, wallet, passport, or even all three. Some Spanish citizens say the police are doing too little to combat the issue, so they decided to take matters into their own hands.
Bueno, nuestro modus operandi consiste en patrullar los andenes del metro o patrullar los autobuses y sobre todo conseguimos sacarle las caras, grabarle las caras y los publicamos en redes sociales, que es lo que más daño le hace, porque como la policía no tiene herramientas, porque el Estado no se las dota, pues nosotros lo que más daño les hace y lo que ellos intentan evitar siempre es que le saquemos las caras, y es lo que nosotros hacemos en redes sociales.
Guerrero says that in recent years, the pickpocketing situation in Barcelona has become even worse, saying that both theft and violent robberies have increased exponentially.
Voy a poner este pañuelo. Lo que queremos conseguir con este movimiento es el cambio de las leyes para que a los carteristas robar una billetera o un móvil no les salga gratis, porque ahora no les ocurre nada. Te pueden dejar sin tu pasaporte, sin tu dinero, sin tu móvil y no pasa nada.
In suburbs to the north and east of Paris, more than a quarter of the population live below the poverty line. But the suburbs also house Olympic stadiums and swimming pools. Residents are right on top of it all, but rarely go to the competitions themselves. The Olympic Village is located in the suburb of Saint-Denis. Thousands of apartments currently being used for athletes will soon be intended for residents, but the initial figure has decreased.
La ville de Saint-Denis, concernant ce village olympique. Aujourd'hui, il est réduit à 20%. Dans cette équation, il y a quand même 80% qui seront à vendre et qui seront à vendre avec un prix excessivement cher. De telle manière à ce que les gens qui habitent ici, le quartier, ne pourront peut-être même surtout pas y accéder.
Et ça. Mais après, vous avez certains prix, puis
Some suburbs are trying to bridge the gap between the poverty of their residents and the gold medals won just a few kilometers away.
L'idée, c'était de leur permettre de vivre pleinement ces Jeux Olympiques.
They're setting up fan zones which organize sports and activities and broadcast the games live, all for free. Protesters demonstrated outside the Bulgarian parliament to denounce a controversial legal amendment adopted the day before, which bans talk of LGBTQ+ and so-called non-traditional sexual choices in schools. Feminist LGBTQ+ and other rights groups organised the protest to call for a reversal of the amendment which bans what its supporters call LGBTQ+ propaganda in schools. On Wednesday, Bulgaria's parliament approved the amendment to the country's educational legislation. The amendment bans what it calls the promotion, popularisation and support of ideas and opinions related to non-traditional sexual orientation in schools. In the past, EU member Bulgaria has been criticised for violating the rights of the LGBTQ+ community and has been urged to guarantee its recognition and protection.